Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today on The King of Random. We've often done some chemistry experiments that are hard to do at home because it's hard to get your hands on the right chemicals or it's a little too dangerous. Well, today we've got some experiments that are easy and safe to do at home with chemicals that are very readily available. All of the experiments we'll do today will involve milk as a main ingredient. The first experiment we're going to try involves milk and a bottle of cola. Although milk is almost pH neutral, some of the components in it react interestingly with the acids and bases found in other chemicals. We're going to try pouring some milk into one of these cola bottles and watch what happens as it reacts with the acid in the soda. Alright, we want to let a little bit of the gas escape, otherwise it's going to overflow and spill everywhere. I'll also probably just pour out a little bit of the soda before we add our milk, just to make more space. And I've also shaken it up and slowly opened it to try and take out some of the extra bubbles. Now I'll pour in the milk and we'll let it sit for a while to watch what happens. It's going to react and hopefully not overflow. That's one of the main reasons I tried to get rid of some of the extra bubbles, because if I'd done that when it was new, it probably would have just exploded everywhere. And while that can be cool, it's not what we're going for today. Oh, this is dangerous because if I don't hold it tight enough, it's just going to explode everywhere. I think it's going to explode everywhere. Ooh. All right, almost unscathed. Just got a little bit in there. Gonna mix this up a little bit. You can already see what's starting to happen. There's little flecks and bits visible floating around in the soda. So now we're just gonna take this and we're gonna let it sit for about 45 minutes and watch what happens to it. All right, our bottle of Coke and milk has now been sitting for a little over an hour, and you can see how much it's weirdly separated out. To be honest, I'm not sure what exactly the different components here are. We've got some sort of bubbly foam up at the top, and we've got this darker brown, disgusting whatever it is down at the bottom. And a clear liquid, I mean, it's clear, it's murky, looks kind of like swamp water, but you can see through it, that's for sure. All right, let's open it up, see what we've got inside. Oh, that's pretty interesting. All of the bubbles escaping now are lifting some of the mix with it. Still smells like cola. That looks really gross. But I am gonna try a little bit of this. Should just be cola and milk, but. Okay, weirdly enough, that actually just still tastes like cola. Like this clear, gross liquid. It tastes like cola still. Weird. Now we're gonna do an experiment that I learned way back in elementary school, and I've always thought it looks really cool. It involves using milk, food coloring, and a little bit of dish soap. The setup is very simple. Find a nice shallow pan or plate and fill it with about ½ an inch of milk. After you've filled your container with a shallow layer of milk, take your pick of food coloring and drop a few drops around your milk. Now I have my container of dish soap, and you can either drip it in just with single drops, or if you have a long bamboo skewer or something similar, you can touch that into the soap and then touch it into the milk near the food coloring. Boom. The soap starts reacting with the milk and makes it spread out in these weird smoke-like patterns, and when it runs into the food coloring, it spreads that out in its own smoke-like patterns that run across the surface of the milk. Get some really cool swirling patterns doing this. All right, it's already kind of swirled up, but I am gonna try just dripping in a drop of soap and see if that does anything at this point. Yes, it does. Look at that, it just flies away. That's pretty fun. Let's try a couple different colors and do this again. So what's happening here? The soap lands on the milk, but it doesn't mix into it. It starts dissolving over the surface of the milk, and as it dissolves, it spreads out into incredibly thin layers. The food coloring is less dense than the milk, and so it tends to sit on the surface of it. So as the soap is moving around, spreading out, it pulls and pushes the food coloring along with it. The soap begins to bind to the fat in the milk, which is what makes it keep moving and swirling around even after it's been in the milk for a while. Our next experiment is somewhat inspired by those videos you've probably seen of making elephant toothpaste. That's a combination of chemicals that sort of combines quickly and explodes out in this really thick, dense foam. What we'll do isn't quite as explosive or rigid, but it is impressively similar how thick and fast it foams up. The first step is to just pour about a half cup of milk into each plastic cup. Now we have here some baking soda and some citric acid. One is a fairly strong base, and the other, as its name implies, is an acid. If you want to buy citric acid, it's usually sold with canning supplies in your grocery store. This is a powdered crystalline acid. This is the same stuff that makes lemons and limes sour. You may have experienced some point in your life candy that's coated with this stuff. It's just a white powder, but it's extremely tart. Yep. If you ever had warheads, this is what's on the outside of them. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of baking soda to 1 cup and 1 tablespoon of citric acid to the other. Citric acid into the milk. Stir up both of those. And you can see that I'm doing this on a cookie sheet because when I add one of these milks to the other one, it's just going to immediately turn into a foam that sprays up out of the cup. So here goes. Boom, it erupts all over. And it's like a really thick foam too. It holds its shape pretty well. Doesn't just collapse. Look at that. There you go. Nice thick milk foam. I'm gonna taste it. Yeah, that's gross. It's like a little bit sour because of the citric acid, but it also has like the baking soda taste, which is sort of a, I don't know, salty, but if something can taste powdery, then baking soda tastes powdery. I want to try that again, but I'm gonna add food coloring to the milk before I combine them and see if we can get like a colored elephant toothpaste coming out of there. Hoping for a bright green sort of ooze, so I'm gonna add some green to one side and some yellow to the other. Baking soda in one, citric acid in the other. Mix those together and colored milk foam eruption. All right. And milk volcano in 3, 2, 1, hopefully. Ah, there you go. That's a way better volcano than baking soda and vinegar. Look at it, slowly oozes off everything. Got like this nice red color down here. Milk lava. And now for one final experiment, we'll show you how to take milk and vinegar and turn them into a form of plastic. The first step is we want to take about 1 cup of milk and heat it up on the stove. You want to heat the milk up to a point where it's just barely too hot to touch. Don't let it boil. Once your milk is hot, remove it from the heat and add 4 teaspoons of white vinegar. You should be able to see the vinegar reacting with the milk pretty much immediately. As you stir the vinegar, it will very quickly start clumping into a disgusting mess. You can see it separating out into clear liquid and some white stringy stuff. Once it's mixed in and really separated, pour your whole mixture through a strainer. This will separate out the clear liquid and the white goop. What you should be left with is a soft white substance that kind of looks like you squished up a marshmallow. You can rinse this off with cool water to make it easier to handle. Now this white mush is mostly made up of what's called milk casein, one of the components in your milk. I'm just going to squish it between a couple of paper towels to try and help dry it off a little more. There you have it. Now this substance, which right now is behaving sort of like a slightly crumbly clay, will eventually dry to become a fairly hard plastic. It's also interesting, when I first mixed this up, I thought that it would smell terrible because it's basically made of vinegar and curdled milk, but it really doesn't have much smell at all. I'm also going to taste it, even though I think it might be gross. Kind of a gross texture. Like if you chewed up string cheese and then spat it out, it's about like that texture, but it really doesn't taste like anything. It doesn't taste like milk. It definitely doesn't taste like vinegar. It's just kind of there. and try and form this into a triangle, like the King of Random symbol. To be honest, I worked as a sculptor for a few years. This is not the nicest stuff to sculpt with, but it is pretty neat that it's just made of milk and vinegar. I'm just going to take this triangle and going to put it up on the stealth shelf for a few days, and we're just going to see what happens to it. We've now let our vinegar and milk composite sit for several weeks and really let it dry out, and holy cow, this thing is just hard plastic at this point. Let me see if I can use pliers and break it. Yep, with pliers I can break it. There we go. Kind of interesting. It does have a little bit of variance of texture running through it. It looks like there's sort of an outside and then an inner core, probably just where it dried faster and slower. I'm gonna see if you can sand it with sandpaper. You can sand it quite well with sandpaper, in fact. It's surprisingly smooth. There's the rough side, and then here's the side that we've sanded down. All right, I was so curious about what I could do with this that I just grabbed the sandpaper and I carved it down into something of an arrowhead shape. It's not really sharp, it's angled, but you'd never be worried about cutting yourself with something like this. It holds its shape. I suppose if that were on a stick and it were traveling fast enough, it could stab through something. It is fairly lightweight, so I'm not sure how much weight it would be offering to your arrow to really guide it, but you know, it does shape pretty well. Surprisingly well, actually. There you have it, a few simple chemistry experiments that you can do at home that use milk as the primary ingredient. We mixed milk with some cola in a soda bottle and watched as it separated into this murky clear liquid and then this brown muddy looking sludge down at the bottom. Some food coloring and dish soap dripped onto the surface of the milk gives us some amazing swirling patterns as the soap dissolves onto the surface of the milk and pushes the food coloring all around it. When we mix citric acid and baking soda in cups of milk and then combine the two, we get a quick rising, thick, dense milk foam, which sort of erupts out and looks a lot like elephant toothpaste. That effect is even cooler when you add some food coloring to it. Might be a good experiment if you ever need to make yourself a science fair volcano. When we combine warm milk with white vinegar, some of the components of the milk separate and we're able to strain out the milk casein, which is sort of like a gummy clay that we can form into different shapes, and then it dries out into a hard plastic. If you've got any ideas of things you want to see us try with the milk and vinegar plastic, let us know, maybe we'll try it out. Thanks guys for joining us for these experiments today, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then. We're not going to put it in a vacuum chamber. Nothing will happen. It's solid plastic. This is why you're not supposed to blow bubbles in your milk. This is what your parents were afraid of. Actually, it kind of reminds me of intestines. You got like this.
Hey guys, if you want to catch up with some of the things I'm doing in my personal life, come follow me on Instagram and Twitter at The King of Random. I post stories and updates as often as I can, and it's really the best way to connect with me directly. I'll see you there.